Hi there. Hope you're having a lovely day so far. Well, there's no doubt that everyone throughout the world is connected through one common thread at the moment, and that's the thread of contracting COVID-19 and what it means for your loved ones. Well, irrespective of, what continent you're on or which country you live in, we're all connected through the same challenges and obstacles of social isolation. And despite that, here in Australia, that we are starting to open up the opportunity to sort of get out and about and get our lives back to normal, there are still going to be quite a few people that are choosing to stay indoors and stay sort of isolated from the wider community to keep themselves safe, purely just because at the moment we still don't have a vaccine. And as human beings, we are a tribal species, and we do need to be connected with each other through the sense of kinship and social bonding. So, really on the flip side of this, when we are disconnected, as we have been over the last sort of months, we fall into negative emotions such as depression, frustration, and irritabilities, as we all know, and we've all been there at some point in our life. So, that said, communication during this phase that we are in at the moment is really important, more now than ever. So to help talk to us about this, we're joined by our special guest, Trish Corbottt. Now, she's the author of How to Raise Kids with Integrity for Parents, Childcare Educators and Teachers. And she's also the founder of Ethical Foundations, helping raise your kids with integrity. Thank you for joining us today, Trish. How are you?
Good, thanks, Rachel. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm really excited to be talking to you. This is our first chat, so welcome.
Thank
Now,
you.
there's lots to talk about, and I've just got so many questions that I want to ask you, so we'll just get stuck straight into it. But, the current COVID-19 pandemic seems to have provided everybody from a retrospect perspective, because we are in that phase now that we are starting to move into more sort of normality, getting the chance to be able to get out and about, and we're phasing back into normal life. So as we look back over the last few months, it's really giving us the opportunity to reevaluate, our personal values and reassess what and who is most important to us. It's almost like humanity has had the opportunity to hit the reset button. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I think humanity has hit the reset button. It's given people time to evaluate what's important in their life and get their priorities straight. Like some people, obviously finances is something that a lot of people need to get into order, because that's, to have that nest egg that people we talk about, and we've heard about so much that we should do, but how many people have actually done it? I did read a article. Somebody had written a thank you to Scott Papp, the author of Barefoot Investor, and they've said they're thankful that they've read his book because that's helped them set up. So it's just getting priorities in order and understanding what's important, the people, the relationships, and, obviously finances, because it's hit people, unexpectedly.
Yes, no one saw this coming, that's for sure. Well, I wanted to ask you, why do you think this particular point in time, and given that it's taken a pandemic to bring out the kindness in people, why do you think we've actually needed something as big and as bold and as scary as this to actually have people change the way that they see and treat other people?
There's always kind people. Whenever we've gone through challenges before in Australia, we've gone through a lot. We've had the drought for a long time, and there's been the truck drivers delivering hay out to the farmers. And the farmers have been, while people are aware of them, they haven't probably been as top of mind. It just took so long for people to realise the struggle that farmers were going through. Then we had the fires, which went throughout Australia, were affected, and now we've got, the flu, but it's not the flu, it's the pandemic, which has never happened in the lifetime of anybody living. So it's made people more aware, and what I like is it's made people aware of the everyday hero as such, the people who are doing the hard jobs, the people in emergency services, back to the fires. the emergency services there. Now the emergency services with the doctors and nurses, the administration. So, and the everyday shopping assistant, at Woolworths, Coles, Aldi's, throughout the shopping centres. So it's made people more aware of the essentials and the people who have put their lives at risk because they're having to deal with the public on an everyday basis.
Mm-hmm. I think people have definitely reassessed, as you mentioned, the people that really do make a difference in our society overall. So are you saying that people before the pandemic were less kind to each other or not? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that as I said, there are people who are always kind. What I believe is that people were so busy and stressful, and now it's hit the reset buttons for so many people individually, and hopefully businesses will, some businesses can be done differently now, because I did hear a nurse say that people are actually coming to emergency for emergency reasons, not for everyday issues that they could see a doctor for.
It's interesting.
So businesses are working differently. So businesses who had no technology, teachers, physiotherapists who are doing telehealth, so they're going to continue to implement those, but those people didn't have any technology skills before.
Correct.
They didn't, or some of them didn't, they didn't have to with their job, but they have now. So businesses will react differently, and industries have discovered that people can work from home. So when people can work from home, they can take time out to go for a walk, or they're less stressed because they don't have the travel time. So working from home, so there's maybe more of a work-life balance that hopefully will be the end result for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Now, just going back to, I guess, kindness being something that definitely sort of has helped a lot of people get through this time. Do you have any practical tips on how to show kindness and what people can do to get their kids involved? And what sort of activities would you suggest that parents to sort of get their kids involved to teach them this virtue?
A great question is how. So when people notice a problem and think, how can I solve that? How can I overcome that? Asking, or what can we do about that? Asking children, they're very insightful, because children have been doing amazing things throughout the world with, just doing things that people wouldn't think of, but children have thought of, and they've got great big massive impacts. And all you have to do is look on social media to find that. But just kids actually know the answers. You could turn around and ask, what do you think you could do to help such and such? What do you think they would like? How could we help them? And they're actually got the answers within them. And so you're helping them discover their gifts, their characteristic gifts. And because they're very thoughtful, they're very considerate, they've just got to be asked how to go about it. What do you think we could do?
They come from that place of just pure love and innocence, and they don't have all the layers that life sort of puts onto them. So they do see life the way that it should be seen from that pure love and that lens. So I think you're absolutely right from that perspective. So you're saying just to ask kids, what can we do in this instance, and they will naturally see and communicate that from that point of view. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what and how. Just use what and how. Ask them, what can we do? How can we do it? And that way they get to problem solve as well. They think they're very innovative.
Yep.
And so are we.
Yes, and that's just the thing sometimes too, that we sometimes forget when we do have the layers of stress and everything else that we sort of have life put on us. It's a matter of just taking those off and actually getting back to who we actually are underneath all of that stuff, all that negativity that sometimes life can sort of have us sort of carry on our shoulders. Now, we published your article titled Communication in Isolation. For someone who hasn't read the article, can you give us a little bit of an overview and tell us what inspired you to write it?
Oh, because I suppose I noticed throughout this pandemic that there were three characteristics, because I do a blog on characteristics each week, but there is three characteristics that really shone through, and that was kindness, creativity and humour, because I believe that when people are kind to each other, it allows us to be more of the real us. And that's, so when we're not stressed, the real us comes out more.
Yes.
And when we're stressed, the real us also comes out, because we are stressed and we might snap. But when people are being kind and they're being accepting of each other, and they're actually, you feel supported and that you've got somebody's back and other people have got yours, it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And kindness is, people are being thoughtful and considerate. I think the ageing population are getting more people doing kind things. They're not just in their homes, and I've seen people go up to windows, on TV, go up to windows and do a creative, play guitar or be a clown or do something like that.
To engage, yes.
To engage with them, to bring some joy to their lives. And that's been great for everybody involved. Yeah. It always is. When you serve, you actually benefit a lot. Mm-hmm. And kindness, people just being kind to each other, and the creativity, like in Australia, there's that taking the bins out, everybody dressing up. That's really creative. Who would have ever, who would think of that? But somebody has. And so many people have taken it on board, because, taking the bin out is part of an outing for the week.
Everyday life. Yep.
Everyday life, and it's everyday life. So creative, which that brings humour as well. Mm. And looking at things in humorous ways is, and just thinking of the fun about it, the benefits, because it's that mindset. Mindset is everything. Mm-hmm. And you have to have that the positive mindset through times like this, because some people find it challenging and others don't.
So the three main characteristic traits that you've seen that's actually helped get people through this time, just to clarify, those three are a kindness, the second one is creativity, and the third one is humour. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, they've been, they're the ones that have shone through to me.
Yeah. And is there any connection between the three traits at all, or not?
Well, they're all character traits, and character traits, we've all got character traits. Are, some people call them virtues. I call them characteristics, because they're all within every one of us, and some of them, there's heaps of characteristics, and we've got them all within us. And it's just, this is what I feel is the foundation for getting to know yourself and getting to become self-aware, because when you're self-aware, you're more confident in who you are, who you want to be, and it helps build, when you practice a characteristic on a frequent basis, it builds resilience for times like this. That, okay, I have to be obedient, go with the flow with what the government's saying, stay indoors, beware of social distancing. And whenever you practice one characteristic, you practice more than one. So kindness, that's being thoughtful and considerate at the same time. There's unity that comes around as a result of that. There's the obedience that comes with the pandemic, the tolerance. It is something that we have to be patient with. We have to be tolerant with. So, self-discipline with, you might feel like doing something, but you think, oh, I can't go and visit my grandkids because, I want to do the right thing. The last thing I want to do is make them sick. So I practice self-discipline before we had to, because you could see it coming with what was happening overseas. And Australia has been so, so lucky. We are the lucky country.
We are.
We really are.
So. And talking about communication again, so many people I've spoken to recently have said that thank goodness that we have technology, and given, I guess, the global pandemic, that this has actually happened during this time, and not before. And social media, I guess, love it or hate it, has really helped a lot of people during this time, and it's allowed us to communicate freely with friends and family. And just online socializing in general. However, as a question, do you see that this time of social isolation that we've had, and people are still going to choose, and rightfully so, as we are sort of phasing out, but we are going to be in the winter months, and there is more chance, I guess, this virus doesn't like heat. It does sort of like cooler temperatures. So there is a possibility, and we all cross our fingers that there isn't going to be, I guess, a second wave. But as people are going to continue, I guess, sort of keeping themselves in isolation, I guess, communication through technology is going to become even more sort of required throughout these winter months. Now, I just wanted to ask, in general, do you think that this, I guess, socializing through technology has actually helped build quality relationships during this time? I'd love to know your thoughts on that, and just your thoughts overall on social media.
Yes, I believe people are using technology more for the essentials. Like, it's back to the foundations of what we need to use it for. We're using it for work purposes. Some people who never thought they would have to use technology in their working life, like school teachers, how much do we appreciate them right now? School teachers and like physiotherapists, they're hands-on. They've never thought that they've had to use technology, but now I know of physiotherapists who are using telehealth, so they're doing online consulting, when possible. And the school teachers have, it's amazing how quickly the education department has got that up and happening. And so using technology I feel that it's been used more wisely, because there's so many people that, people are looking at their screens, and you can go anywhere and you'd look around and you'd see people having coffee together, but everybody's looking at their phones, and you just sort of wonder. Whereas I think there's only so much screen time that people want, but now people are going for walks, they're doing things as their family, the TikTok family things that you've seen families do.
Yes, yep. So it's basically being used for the purposes it was intended for. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know why it was intended for, but yeah, I feel that it's more being used more wisely and more productively, because I know with Zoom, I kept in contact with my father. My mum's passed, but my father and my siblings, we would have Sunday afternoon Zoom. So there'd be 5 children and dad, and we'd just have Zoom meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we all live close by, we just couldn't see each other, because we just felt it was, we want to keep dad safe. We've just lost mum, so we want to keep dad safe, and Zoom was the best way to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I guess social isolation has highlighted, this is bringing back something that you mentioned earlier on in the chat, but a big gap with those who don't use it, and that being the elderly, and in general being one major group that has largely not received, I guess, the same amount of attention as before. So, I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts, I guess, on talking about communication and everything else as well. Like, what are your thoughts on, I guess, how all of the grandparents are sort of feeling at the moment? No doubt, as we are opening up the opportunity for them to be able to see their grandkids again, this is a wonderful thing. But in general, do you think this is something that they've really struggled with over the last few months?
Yeah, I suspect that it's been hard on both, because obviously grandparents want to see the grandchildren, and I know I've been FaceTiming my grandchildren. One of them's too young to understand it. He's under 1, and I hardly feel like I know him, because I haven't seen him very much because of this. But and that's another reason I've stayed away, because he is so young. Whereas the others, it's been great FaceTiming them, which is not something I've done before with them because I see them. So I think, and I know so many grandparents are now looking forward to seeing the grandkids, and I would suspect the grandkids, are very keen to see the grandparents, because that support, that family support, hasn't been there to provide to the parents of the children as much. And so they, I think everybody would hopefully be a bit more appreciative of each other and what we all do for each other.
Now, going back to what you're saying before about the 3 traits that you've mentioned have sort of been quite predominant throughout the last few months. I'd love to know from your perspective, and speaking about creativity now, but how do you think people can actually discover their creativity during this time, as we are sort of going to continue sort of for a lot of people being sort of self-isolated? So for people that maybe are not creatively minded, but they, it is something they're interested in doing, what are your thoughts on that then? How can they discover their own creativity?
Well, creativity, it's not been a favourite word of mine. It's not something I've ever considered myself to be. However, I am very passionate about ideas. So ideas are also a creation, because it was, I've discovered what I think is the 9 essential areas that parents, I'd like to know before if I was becoming a parent. So it's what I wish I knew. So I've never thought of myself as creative, yet I've written a book. So people would call that creative. And to come up with the ideas that I put in the book, and the big picture that I see, because my book's about big picture parenting. It's not the small everyday stuff. So it's what I wish I knew, or as a pregnant person, or as a young mother of young children. But so that is creative. So people have ideas. They always have ideas of what they think they can do to help the world become a better place, or they're just creative because they're into quilt making or sewing, or being able to, I know somebody who is interested in creating products that she loves making, sewing, etc. So now she's building a business because she wants to make money for herself and not work and become her own boss. So I think people are thinking, what is it I enjoy doing that I could actually make some money from? And so people are, that is a creative idea. So ideas are creative as well. I think just becoming aware of your own gifts is really important.
Mm-hmm. And so if people maybe don't know what their own gifts are and their own talents are, I guess from that perspective, where do people start? As you were just saying, like your friend is sort of now looking at sort of starting a business because that's something that she's passionate in. Is that the key? Is the key just sort of saying, okay, great, I'm really quite passionate about this. This is something that I may want to sort of take further. And as we get to the other end of I guess, sort of, and coming out of, I guess, the dark tunnel that we have actually been in the last few months, is this what you're saying that people should be doing? They should be thinking, this is what I'm passionate about, and should maybe sort of pursue this as sort of like a side hobby or something like that, and maybe even take it further and actually open up a business doing that particular thing?
Yeah. Firstly, I'm uncomfortable with the word should. So what people could do is, I believe getting to know yourself is the most important thing, because when you get to know yourself, you know who you are, who you want to be, and you work your way to becoming, because life's a journey, not a destination, as we say, as the saying goes. And the other thing is, if people look at what they enjoyed doing as a child, like there's no way I would have thought that, but you don't, some people, I could tell that somebody I know is she loves animals, and I could see her as a vet. Maybe I could always see her working with animals, and she's actually doing that. So it's what ask your parent, what was it you enjoyed, or think about what you enjoyed as a child, because people, what they enjoy as a child is often, can come through in adult life. And if you can get paid for what you love doing, you got it made. But there's no way that I would have thought that that I would ever write a book. That wasn't something that was on my agenda. It's just because I'm passionate about making the world, helping kids and getting rid of bullying, anxiety, suicide, teenage suicides, etc. So I'm passionate about that. So it's what people are passionate about, what they value, and just think, what can I do? How can I, what can I do to help this situation? And,
So do you think,
what did I enjoy?
So do you think on the other side of this that there will be, I guess, a shift in behaviours and what people are going to decide to do with themselves? And or do you think that largely the majority of people will sort of stay the same? What are your thoughts on that?
I believe everybody changes on a daily basis. Like, we grow physically, but there's also the intellectual and the emotional and spiritual sides of us that grow and develop as well. And everything goes up and down. Nothing stays the same. So it's up to us whether we want to strengthen those areas or not. So I believe that people do change consistently, whether, because change is something that happens every day. It's just that people don't like change, but it's funny because it's ironic because it happens all the time. Because once you've got a piece of information, you can't not know it, or you can't unsee things. So we've experienced this, so we can't unexperience it. I just hope that people do want to be more thoughtful, kind, and aware of how they're feeling, and know when I'm not in a good mood today, or I've not had good sleep, I'm a bit snappy, so I have to just be a bit mindful of that, or just to thank the checkout chick as they go through the checkout, or the guy, just to
shift to more positive behaviours.
Yeah. So
and
I remember
another question I wanted to ask as well, I guess the perception over the last few years was that a lot of people are far too dependent on their electronic devices, being their phones and what have you, but it's sort of a little ironic that these devices have helped us get through the last few months and allowed us to communicate with loved ones. So I'd just love to know largely, like, what are your thoughts on this overall?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I believe that people who weren't techie at all have become techie. We're using it more wisely. I think people can turn around and, it will change things where we're more open to being able to apply the devices, the technology, in more practical ways that help us connect with people online who are at a distance. And while we've done that, we could do that before. It's just, I suppose, understanding our own values and basics, the foundations of what we prioritise, and just ensuring that we're doing what's better for us, what serves us. So it doesn't serve us to sit in a computer all day, unless you're trying to doing some work where it's your passion to build something in particular. Like I'm currently creating a webinar based on my book. But so unless you're trying to do something like that, so use technology, but use it wisely, use it for a purpose. And, there's no need for us to sit on our phones all day. What's been great is that it's got people who weren't techie to become more aware of Zoom, and the whole world's become more aware of Zoom. Yeah.
And lastly, I'd love to know, what key lessons do you think that this point in time will actually teach our children?
I think children will remember either parents being helpful, like the community services that their parents helped, were one of the daily heroes, seeing their parents through different eyes, and spending time with their family. So because they have been home, so there's not rushing here, rushing there, going to an appointment or a interest group every afternoon. So having that time, the family time. And I know I've read articles where people have said this has helped my marriage, because they've not been so stressed with having to do every day, the everyday run of the mill Groundhog Day. and it's helped their relationship. I know people who go for walks with their partners a lot more. People have family times, they've got games, they're spending a lot more quality time with their families.
Yes.
And education. So there's a lot of online education happening with because people are, and education is key.
Yes. Yep. So if you had any key messages, I guess, for anyone watching or listening this, what would they be?
Oh, well, I'm very passionate about characteristics, as with my book. And get to know yourself. And I blog about a characteristic a week, a virtual week, for people just to be mindful of. Because when people are mindful of it, they're more confident in themselves. They know themselves. They know who they want to be, who they don't want to be. And when it comes to pandemics or challenging times, any challenging time in your life, then they're more resilient because they're comfortable with who they are. And when you're comfortable with who you are, you're okay. You'll get through anything.
Well, look, thanks so much for the chat today, Trish. If anyone's got any questions and or they want to purchase your book or reach you, whereabouts can they find you?
My website is called ethicalfoundations.com.au, and my Facebook page is Trish Corbottt, author and life coach. So, because life coaching is what I do to help people become more aware and help them find their dreams.
Thank you so much for your time today, Trish, and can't wait for the next chat. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, Rachel.
Bye.